Hi, folks. This is your old buddy Dustin. I thought I'd do another Bill Peet reading. I've talked about Bill Peet a couple times before. Bill Peet's an illustrator and writer. He doesn't do comic strips, funny papers, and I've said all this before, but I'll reiterate if you haven't listened to those. He's an illustrator, and he's one of my favorites. Always been a favorite of mine. And I'm actually dusting off an old storybook that I've had since I was really little. And I read one before, but this one's yellowed with age. And that's a good thing because it's been in my collection for a long time. And the title is Chester the Worldly Pig. And it's by Bill Peet. Bill Peet's is fantastic. So I'll do my best. We'll go through this one. It's one of my oldest books that I've had in my collection. I was a child when I first read this book. And I'll read his preface. You know, it's pretty sweet. So he's devoting this book. He says it's to my wife Margaret, my sons Bill and Steve. I guess he named one of his sons Bill after himself. That's nice. Well, yeah, Chester the Worldly Pig. Yeah, we start with and these are full pages, so there's going to be a lot of description followed by actual narrative. When we start with Chester, he's a little spotted pig. He's a piglet at this point. I always thought that was funny. Piglet. It's a funny word. He's kind of sulking in the pig pen, and behind him are three other bigger pigs, and they're all eating out of the trough. And he's sulking there, and you can see the fence to the pig pen and an overturned bucket in the background, and some grass. And it's a dirty looking pig pen, but that's how all pig pens are, I guess. Anyway, there's Chester sulking. Of all things, grumbled Chester, why on earth did I have to be a pig? A pig is no better off than a cabbage or a carrot. Just something to eat. But before I end up so much as a sausage and ham, I intend to try and amount to something. But what else could a pig ever be? That was Chester's main problem. And he turned this around and around in his head, until one day it suddenly came to him. I'll be a star in a circus. On the wall next to their pig pen, there's a bunch of circus posters. Yep, a few that have been ripped off, just torn down. Past circuses. But on top of all of those kind of ripped down posters is a fresh one, and the poster reads Barton and Daly Giant 3-Ring Circus. 2 complete shows daily. Coming to Venice's. I don't know what town that would be, but May 15th. It doesn't have a year either. But Chester's standing there and he's looking up at the wall of the circus poster. He's looking up and his ears are perked out. Of course, he's got that little curly tail of a pig. He's just staring up at this wall of posters. What gave Chester such an outlandish idea was a circus poster which appeared on the barn wall one Sunday morning in May. And what caught the little pig's eye was a seal with a ball balanced on the tip of its nose. "The nose," said Chester. "That's the thing. Surely my flat pig snout must be good for something." And he searched the pig pen for an idea. There was only one trough, a fence, and a mud puddle. The trough was much too cumbersome, he decided, and I can't very well balance a fence or a mud puddle on my nose. So I'll have to work just the other way around. I'll have to balance my nose on something, on the flat top of a fence post. Anyone knows that a pig can't climb, but Chester couldn't let this bit of useless knowledge hold him down. And with a slight boost from an overturned bucket, he struggled up the side of the fence until he was finally perched on the top rail. There's an image of Chester. He's trying to climb up a fence, and a pig trying to climb a fence is kind of funny. He's got that overturned bucket, and he's trying to crawl his way up this slatted fence. He's looking up eagerly. It's beautifully illustrated too. Bill Peet always does a good job of that. But I'm turning the page. He's found his way to the top of the fence. Finally. It's kind of a remarkable thing that a pig was able to make his way up the fence like that, but we continue on. Now came the tricky part. Placing his snout squarely on the post, he carefully raised one hind leg in the air, then the other, and with a flurry of snort kicks, he launched his body up over his head, and for an instant, he teetered upside down on his nose. And then he tumbled down to land with a sploosh in the feed trough. Yeah, the image kind of shows him. He's got his nose on the post, and he's kind of trying to balance himself on it, but he's failed completely. And he's fallen down into the trough of water, and he's kind of laying back, and kind of looks like a fat dude sitting in a bathtub. He's got an angry look on his face. "Well, so far so bad," he muttered. But Chester had no idea of quitting. Before he ever mastered the trick, he expected to take quite a few such tumbles. And indeed he did. He took hundreds of tumbles that day, and by nightfall he was a very weary and badly bruised pig. But surprisingly enough, his spirits were high. The last effort had been a great improvement. He had held his balance for what he had guessed to be a full minute. He's a industrious pig. Okay, so now we have in our scene we have a train coming through the frame. Big locomotive. I mean, it's chugging out smoke out of its smokestack, and it's coming along. And the next morning, after a few more tumbles, Chester had mastered the impossible feat. He could stand on his nose for as long as he pleased. And now he was all set to be discovered. This was no big problem. It had been figured out from the beginning. A railroad ran right next to the farm, and the pig was sure that sooner or later the circus train would be coming by there. Whenever he heard a locomotive chugging down the track, he scrambled up the fence and quickly went into his nose stand. He was always ready, just in case. And he is. He's balancing on his nose on the fence as that train's coming chugging by. This one doesn't look like a church train or a circus train. Church train. I don't know where that came from. Turn the page. Oh, but it looks like maybe this is a promising train that's coming by now, and Chester is he's balancing on his nose on that fence. And his eyes are looking right at it. He's focused entirely on that train. Then sure enough, early one morning there came the circus train with its long flat cars loaded with animal wagons and tent poles, followed by the elegant red coaches. As the coaches rumbled by, Chester could tell from the upside-down view that all the window shades were drawn. On the train between towns, the weary circus people always try to catch up with their sleep. They try to catch up with their sleep. So no one happened to see the pig on the post. That's too bad. Yeah, all the shades are drawn on the train coaches. I don't think anyone's looking out the window. Well, now Chester's in a different environment. He seems to be walking down the tracks, and I think the narrative here will explain that. Oh well, sighed Chester. It looks like I'll have to take a trip. And he scrambled to the ground outside the fence and set off down the railroad track. It was as simple as that. There was no need to worry about the farmer, for he was always so busy he didn't even know he owned a little spotted pig. And when Chester went trotting by the field where he was plowing, the man merely chuckled. Well now, it appears to me that somebody's pig pen could stand a little fixin'. Chester realized that the circus might have gone a long way before stopping to set up the tents. After no telling how far. So he settled down to a good steady jog trot, with his eyes fixed on the tracks just ahead. And that's the image we see. I mean, we see Chester's kind of a silly farmer. He has no idea that the pig that's trotting down the tracks is indeed his. And the farmer's standing there with two big horses, the Clydesdale horses, in front of him, pulling a plow. And the farmer's looking over at Chester as he's trotting down the tracks. Big smile on his face. Oh well, I mean, whatever. Chester made off, and the farmer had no clue. Turn the page again. We're on to another spectacular scene here. Chester's just kind of stumbled along and come across the entire circus operation. The circus crew is actively setting up the tents for the circus. They're hard at work. There's men moving scaffolding into the tent. The tent's already erected right now, but they're still working to get things going. And there's one man opening up a trunk. I'm not sure what he's looking for, but he's reaching into it. But it's just a big display of things. There's some horses that are kind of hanging out under another tent. A lady washing some clothes in a wash bin. There's just a lot going on in this scene. But Chester's just come along and seen this. And before he knew it, there was the big top, and he stopped with an oink of surprise. This huge mountain of canvas looming above a bustling city of tents and wagons was almost too much for a little farm pig to take all at once. And at first, he could only stare in amazement. Then sternly he warned himself, "If I lose my nerve now, I'm through before I start. So if I'm going to be a big star, it's time to get used to the big things. The bigger the better. And with renowned courage, he went trotting ahead into the bustling circus lot. He's a brave pig. I always thought that about Chester. But yeah, Chester's gotten along, and he's now he's well within the carnies. I mean, he's impressing everybody. He's balancing himself like he did on his fence post on a circus stake, one of the stakes that holds up one of the tents. And there's carnies all around him, marveling at his abilities. Among them is a clown that's kind of looking, and a guy with, it looks like maybe he's what do you call those guys? They stand on this like the stilt walkers. He's got big long striped pants, big hat, bow tie, and they're all smiling, looking down at him. And just a few other people. Yeah, the elephants walked up, and so has a camel. They're all looking at Chester as he's balanced on his snout. Chester was nimble and quick for a pig, and he managed to dodge and sidestep his way through the army of hustling roustabouts without getting kicked or stomped on. When he came to an open space near the back door of the big top, he picked out a tent stake, exactly the right height, and on his very first try went into a perfect nose stand. Then in no time at all, Chester was discovered by the circus tall man. "Hey everybody," he shouted. "Look at that little old pig way down there." And suddenly, Chester was the center of attention, with everyone talking at once. "Say, that's a pretty nifty trick. A real ding-dong doozy. Why, he's a natural-born acrobat. Where'd he come from? What's the difference? Let's put him in the show." And Chester was hustled away to a dressing tent. Now, Chester made a mark. Yeah, now Chester's like in a dressing tent. He's getting fitted with what looks like a kind of a feather on his head, and there's another guy kind of dusting his nose with some red makeup, perhaps. They're getting him all ready for a show. And all around him, there's other costumes and things. It's clearly a tent meant for. It's a dressing tent, It's where you go to get ready, I guess, for the show. Two attendants tied a red ribbon around his middle, fastened a feathery plume on his head, and gave his precious snout a bit of a shine with a dab of pink shoe polish. And the next thing the little pig knew, he was riding into the big top at the head of the grand parade on a magnificent white stallion led by a beautiful circus queen. That's exactly the image that we get right there. He's on the back of a horse. Actually, the horse is looking back at him with a bit of a angry look on his face. I don't know why. The horse is not a big fan of having a pig ride on his back, I guess. But he's leading the circus parade. It just can't be true, thought Chester, tingling with excitement. This must be a glorious dream. It must be too good to last. And indeed it was too good to last. In a very short while, the glorious dream turned into more of a nightmare. Oh my goodness. Turn the page and OMG. So Chester's now, he's standing on a pedestal next to about 6 or 7 Bengal tigers. They're all standing on their pedestals, and they're all looking down at Chester. Big smiles on their faces. One's actually licking its chomps. Chester's in trouble in here. There's also a lion tamer standing there. He's standing there at attention. He's got a whip. He's holding a whip. But he's just kind of standing there at attention. But all these tigers are just staring down Chester the pig, who's still wearing his kind of done up outfit with the feather and the red ribbon. For to Chester's horror, when the main show began, he found himself in the big cage with 5 ferocious tigers. Someone had decided the small pig's act must be more spectacular. It needed an element of danger, and the ringmaster's booming voice filled the tent as he announced the spectacular new act. Now, for the very first time anywhere, we proudly present Percival, the performing pig, the one and only pig with the dauntless courage and dangerous and daring ever to perform in the very same arena with the savage beasts of the jungle. Just as the announcement was finished, the courageous Percival fainted, and he was quickly carried out of the big cage amid a storm of hooting and jeering from the angry spectators. Chester fainted through the stress of the whole thing. The story only gets worse from here. I mean, it's just dire for Chester. I mean, not dire, but just sad. Yeah, Chester's been placed in a little baby carriage, and now he's being pushed around by a circus clown. And he doesn't look happy about it. He's sitting in that carriage with a scowl on his face, but the clown pushing him is this creature with a big long red nose, and it's wearing a flower hat and a blue skirt. Of course, big feet, as clowns do. And she's kind of like waving a hanky behind her. But he's clearly being made fun of. Chester was quickly revived with a splash of cold lemonade. Then he was dressed in baby clothes with a lace bonnet tied under his chin. And Roscoe the clown, in a frilly skirt and flowered hat, wheeled him around the big top in a doll buggy. A rippling wave of laughter followed after them, and someone squealed, "Oh, what a darling, adorable little pig!" And after 5 or 6 trips around the tent, the poor pig had turned almost the color of the clown's needle nose, which is like red. Now we're looking in, I don't know who this guy is, but he's laying in bed. And Chester's looking up at him with a big scowl on his face. I think we're gonna figure out who this guy is in this next line. Late that night, after the last performance, Roscoe took off his costume and makeup. Then, without so much as one glance at Chester, he turned down the lamp and crawled into bed, leaving the disgruntled pig chained to a tent post and still wearing the miserable bonnet and dress. There was no wriggling out of it, for the ribbon was tied in a double knot under his chin. So he suspected that as long as he was Roscoe's pig, this would be his costume day and night. Well, one thing, vowed Chester. I'll give this old clown the slip the first chance I get. So I guess Roscoe is the clown. Roscoe is the clown that brought Chester in. But he's got him chained to a tent post, still wearing that embarrassing outfit. All right, we're moving on. I guess now the circus is moving on. We're back in the train car, and all the carnies are sitting in chairs and they're all kind of asleep. But there's some action happening. And that action I think will come about in this next part. Chester's first chance came on the very first train trip. Roscoe hadn't bothered to chain his pet pig. He kept him under the seat with his suitcase, figuring if the pig got loose on the train, he wouldn't get far. But Chester figured otherwise, and as the clown was lighting a cigar, he squirted from under the seat and went racing away to the aisle. Roscoe was surprisingly spry for an old fellow, and halfway down the car, the big clown's feet were slapping close to the panicky pig's heels. That's a hard one. And halfway down the car, the big clown's feet were slapping close at the panicky pig's heels. He would have caught Chester for sure if the tall man hadn't left a long leg on the aisle. Old Roscoe tripped and went sprawling out, and by the time he picked himself up off the floor, the pig had reached the caboose and squeezed his way out the door. Yeah, he made his way down the aisle. Yeah, but Roscoe wasn't fast enough. He tripped over the tall man's leg. Anyway. Yeah, Chester's made his way out. He's out the back of the train and he's bounding down the hill next to the train tracks, making his escape. Then, in desperation, Chester leaped. Is that right? Then, in desperation, Chester leaped off the back platform to go sliding and tumbling over a steep embankment and down into a dense pine forest, where he stopped, kerplump, by the broad backside of a bear. The big hairy beast whirled around with a snort of surprise, for he had never seen a pig wearing baby clothes before. But then at the same time, Chester had never seen a big hairy bear before, and for a brief instant they sat blinking at one another. I'd probably do the same thing. Oh man, now Chester's being chased by the bear. He's running off, and he's still wearing that embarrassing gown, that baby gown. It's absolutely embarrassing. I don't envy that look, especially being chased by a bear, but at any rate. Then one savage snarl from the bear sent the terrified pig squealing off into the wilderness, plowing headlong through brambles and brush, then frantically leaping the fallen timbers. This time, Chester was running for his life, and the bear was close on his tail, eating up the distance in long, easy strides. He was only one jump away when all of a sudden, Dustin turns the page. And all of a sudden, he stopped with a snort and stood up. The pig had run straight for the camp of 3 tattered old tramps, and the bear wanted no part of them. His last meeting with men had cost him a piece of one ear, so with a grumbled growl, he turned and lumbered off. No wonder the bear was so scared, thought Chester, after taking one look at the 3 fierce faces overgrown with beards, rusty red, grizzly gray, and bushy black. They were enough to scare anyone. And sure enough, that's the scene we have right here. The bear, standing there defeated, stopped short in his tracks, while Chester's running towards these grisly old men. And they're grisly old men. All their clothes are in tatters. One guy's holding a coffee cup, another one a soup pan with a fork, another one kind of pointing at him. Just a bunch of kind of grisly men, all bearded. Who knows what their story is? They've been probably on the run from something, but they're just tramps. I think that's what they said. 3 tattered old tramps, yeah. Huh. Tattered old tramps, that's for sure. Well, the bears lumbered off. And the men, these men have kind of taken another stance. Now they're kind of attacking Chester. One has kind of grabbed his embarrassing gown that he's wearing, and he's dropped his coffee cup. The other two are kind of staring intently. One's holding open a bag. But old bears lumbered off into the woods. So Chester decided to take his chances in the woods, but not quite quickly enough. Just as he turned to go, the red beard sprang, and in one wild grab seized the flying cape, jerked the pig off his feet, then stuffed him snout first into a sack. "Can't leave you out here in the woods, piggy," he muttered as he tied up the top of the sack. "It's not safe." "He's safe enough now," grinned the graybeard. "At least till supper time." "Now all we need is beans," said Blackbeard. "Nothing like pork and beans." "Turnip greens," said Graybeard. "They're the best with roast pig." "Oh no," growled Red. "He's gonna be boiled with a batch of sauerkraut." You like my my impressions of those 3 dudes? I've been working on it. I've been doing it. I've been practicing all night. Not. Okay, so Red, Gray, and Blackbeard they've sacked up poor old Chester, and they're running towards a train that's going by. A different train. It's kind of a boxcar train. But they're running off towards the train. Yeah, I guess that's what they do. They jump trains. But they're running towards it, and Redbeard's got Chester in a sack over his shoulder in a full dead sprint. Just then, a train whistle echoed through the pines, and the 3 tramps quickly gathered up their gear, strapped on their packs, and hurried off through the woods toward the railroad, with Redbeard toting the pig sack. Although he couldn't see, Chester could tell by the bouncing of the sack and the growing rumble of the train wheels just what was happening. The rumbling grew into heavy thunder as the 3 tramps caught up with a long freight crawling up the steep mountain grade. They scrambled up the ladder to the top of the boxcar, then settled down for a free and easy ride to most anywhere. The 3 tramps are angry at each other now in this picture. They're the one's Graybeard shaking his fist at Redbeard. Blackbeard's kind of pointing, and above them there's kind of a cloud of ash from the train that's raining down soot on top of him. And Redbeard's still holding on to Chester in the sack, in that burlap sack. Poor Chester. It was a miserable trip for Chester. The day was scorching hot, and he was barely able to breathe through the sack. But he was no worse off than the 3 tramps who rode along under an endless cloud of train smoke, which showered them with hot cinders and soot. And in their misery, they began to quarrel. "I'm the one that caught this pig," Redbeard roared above the noise of the train, "so I'm keeping him all to myself." "Oh, no you don't," bellowed Blackbeard. "It's share and share alike. That's the rule. And a rule's a rule," growled Graybeard. "I'm breaking the rules," roared Red. "So what can you do about it?" Oh man, their fighting is intensified. Now they're kind of tearing at the sack with poor old Chester inside. They've clearly they're divided now. It's like the Treasure of Sierra Leone. With good old Humphrey Bogart. Anyway, that's beyond the point. Chester's no sack of gold, but he's a pig. He's a pig in a sack. So the pig in the sack. Okay. And the shouting went on through. Okay. And the shouting went on through the long, hot, smoky afternoon. And at the end of the day, when the train pulled into a freight yard on the outskirts of a big city, the quarrel had gone so far the tramps had decided to split up. But before they parted, they had one last fight over Chester. A furious tug of war with all three jerking and pulling on the sack at once. Suddenly the sack ripped in two, and out popped the pig. Out popped the pig. Yeah, Chester popped out. Now they're chasing after him as he's scurrying away, and he's scurrying along and he's bound across the track as a big locomotive comes. In one bounce, Chester was on his feet, bounding away over the tracks across the freight yard, straight into the path of a speeding locomotive. Lucky thing that the pig was light on his feet. He hadn't eaten for days. And in one leap, he sailed lightly over the cowcatcher, leaving the three beards waiting for the train to pass. By the time the caboose had come rattling by, the pig was long gone. He had disappeared into the big city beyond. Good boy, Chester. Oh, Chester's in the city now. He's still walking along, but he's still wearing that embarrassing gown. Jeez, he still can't rid himself of that embarrassing baby gown. What can you do as a pig, though? I guess you're stuck with it. But he's wearing it, and he's in the city now. It's raining. Sucks. Yeah. You know, I mean, things couldn't get worse if it were raining, unless it weren't raining. But he's passing a market, and it says Ray's Market. And on the window, painted on there, says fresh ham, smoked ham, choice bacon, pork chops. He's looking at it. I'm not sure if he understands, but he's looking at it nonetheless. As night came on, it began to drizzle, and the bedraggled pig wandered aimlessly along the dreary streets with no idea of where he was going. On every side were dark, ghostly buildings with their yawning doorways and dingy storefronts. And it seemed to the small pig that every other store was a butcher shop, with all the signs of doom printed boldly on the windows. Fresh ham, smoked ham, choice bacon, pork chops, pork sausage, pickled pig's feet. It was plain to see that the big city was no place for a pig, at least a live pig. That's for sure, Chester. And so Chester's found his way into an alley. Doesn't look very, it doesn't look very hospitable or comfortable. He's sleeping in a barrel around a bunch of trash, and there's a rat kind of climbing over, like scuttering over the top of his barrel that he's sleeping in. Well, one thing, sighed Chester. I'm much too tired to figure out anything tonight. And he wandered into a narrow alley where he found an overturned barrel by a junk heap. He crawled in and out of the drizzle, and with a groan of despair, the unhappy pig dropped off to sleep. I'd be tired after that day. I don't blame him at all. Well, Chester's made his way out of the city. He's now just trotting along a country road, still wearing that absolutely hideous outfit that he was given long ago. But he's made it out of the city. Chester was up and on his way before daylight. He was taking no chances of getting caught in the big city. For now, he had made other plans. and he hurried along the deserted streets, always going in the direction which he figured would take him out of the country, into the country. When the sun peeped over the horizon, he was trotting along a dusty road past the wheat fields. Then at the first barn lot he came to, he turned into the gate to give himself up, and the farmer greeted the stray pig with open arms. Now we see Chester's in another pen, and a very happy looking farmer is pouring water into the trough that Chester's drinking out of. Farmer looks alright. He actually looks kind of scary, but I think he's meant to kind of be a shining light. He's just kind of a scary, he's illustrated scary. But at any rate, I don't know. First the farmer shucked off the bonnet and dressed. Oh, that's a good thing. Just in case someone might be looking out for a pig wearing baby clothes. Then plunked him in a pen and filled the trough. He intended to make the most of this free little pig, which was just fine with Chester, for he had decided that if he must go the way of all pigs, then he was going on a great way. So he ate his fill every day, and like every other pig, when he wasn't eating, he was sleeping. Wow, okay, time's passed clearly. Chester's grown into an enormous size, and he's about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And that kind of scary looking farmer that I was talking about earlier is still looking at him. He's kind of leaning on the fence looking at Chester. But down the road looks like it's coming another like circus truck or something. Some sort of circus truck. To the farmer's delight, after a couple of years, Chester ballooned into a huge blimp of a pig. And one morning, the happy farmer said, "Today this little pig goes to market." Wow. On that very same morning, a carnival van stopped at the farm, and out of the cab stepped a dignified white-whiskered man with a broad-brimmed hat and fancy frock coat. He had stopped to buy fresh eggs, but when he saw the huge pig, he forgot all about the eggs. Well, yeah, now, there's the carny van that stopped, and the man looking for eggs is leaning on the fence next to a creepy farmer, and he's looking down at Chester, who's just outrageously huge. But they're looking at each other and kind of smiling. They're clearly looks like they're striking a deal. And behind him, his van reads, Martin's Miracle Show. And it's got like a bunch of like flags and like bundles of things up there, a big drum and some cymbals and some trunks and a trombone. It's clearly a show truck. "What will you take for your pig?" he asked. The farmer thought for a minute, then named his price, which was at least twice what he figured the pig was worth. And to the farmer's surprise, the man didn't so much as bat an eye. He counted out the money, and the deal was closed. After the pig was loaded aboard and the van drove away, the farmer had himself a good laugh. So he thinks he bought the world's biggest pig. Why, I've seen at least a dozen bigger ones at the county fair. But if the fellow had gone to school long enough to study geography, he'd have known that Chester was much more than just plain big. So now Chester's standing on a pedestal, and it plainly displaying the colors on his skin. His spots have changed. The spots that he had at the beginning have definitely changed based on his size, probably, but He's unaware of it at this point. For the next day, Chester was introduced to the crowd in the carnival tent as the one and only worldly pig. "Now, if you will please move in a little closer," said the white-whiskered man, "you will see the entire map of the world imprinted by nature upon this remarkable creature's enormous hide. On his left side, the continents of North and South America, including the land of Australia, which is down under, of course." The crowd gasped in amazement, while Chester oinked in surprise. He was just as amazed as anyone. "But that's only the half of it," said the man, turning the pig around on his revolving platform. "On his right side we find Europe, Africa, and Asia, and for good measure, even that tiny island of Borneo. So you see, my friends, this amazing pig is truly one of nature's wonders, untouched by inks, paints, stains, or dyes, and to remove all possible doubt, he will now give our worldly wonder a good-sounding scrubble." He sure does. I mean, Chester has the world map on his body. That are his spots. His spots make up the world map. And now there's a bunch of brushes reaching in to give him a cleaning, and he's got a big smile on his face. Chester's just absolutely overjoyed. He's getting scrubbed down. Who wouldn't be? Then Chester was treated to the first bath in all of his life, and he squealed with pleasure. It felt good to be clean. Not spotlessly clean, however. When the foamy suds had been rinsed away, the map came out more plainly than ever, with the oceans of a glowing pink. Then, as the admiring crowd rocked the tent with applause, the delighted pig took a few more worldly turns to show off his spectacular spots. But if he had ever heard that show-offish actors were sometimes called hams, Chester would have surely been horrified. Chester the worldly pig. So it all worked out for Chester. Oh, Chester. You know, he had a talent when he was able to balance on his snout, but really, in the end, it was all about his coloring, his spots on his body. I don't know what that goes to say about people with, or animals, or anything. I mean, there's clearly a message behind the whole thing. You know, and the message, I always try to find a message in these things. And in this one, you know, I'd like to say that success comes in the form of like hard work and talent, and in this one, it's really not. I mean, Chester worked hard to learn how to balance on his snout, but that really didn't get him anywhere. It got him to the circus and into a whole mess of things. But ultimately, if he hadn't done that, he never would have found the man that noticed the world map on his complexion. But the ultimate success behind his complexion is kind of pure luck. So I don't know what kind of message that puts out there. I mean, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes it takes a little bit of skill to get to where you're going. I don't know, Chester the worldly pig. That one's a little less, Bill Peet usually addresses, I mean, this is meant for kids. And if you kids want to listen to this show, then I welcome it, and post your comments if you want more, because I have every single Bill Peet book in my collection. And if you make a request, I will happily I'll happily make another one of these, more suited for children. It's been a thought of mine for a while. Let me know, please. That's kind of what I'm here for. And also, Bill Peet does a brilliant job of that. So, thanks for listening, everybody. This is just another random recording. Until next time, this is your old buddy Dustin. Thanks for coming by.